Hello, welcome to Nashville Savvy. I'm your host, Megan Lee Putziedlik with The Pamphleteer, and we're glad to see you back. I'm back in action after taking a week off, going and seeing the eclipse. I drove out to Paducah in Kentucky, and it was clear skies, and it was awesome. I hope that hopefully you had clear skies as well. I know it was spotty for even people who traveled all the way to Texas to see it, but glad to be back here. We're just going to jump right into some local news because we have a lot of interesting things coming down the pipes this week as we roll into a transit initiative and the end of General Assembly. So let's start with transit. So hot take from me is the transit referendum is a way to secure dedicated funding. And that's what it's about. That's really just all about. This is Freddie O'Connell's plan. It's not really a hot take. It's not really a secret. But O'Connell has been doing his best to package his vision by trimming his transit plan with attractive concessions. He's had community meetings. He knows what the people want. He's mentioned things like sidewalks a lot, traffic light updates. His latest addition came last week during his media roundtable when he mentioned that there may be an addition to the plan as far as park and rides go, which is an interesting addition to whatever this referendum looks like in the end. That being said, all of those things can be prioritized and negotiated on a yearly basis. But what he's really after is to fulfill his vision, and he needs the dedication, the dedicated funding to fulfill this vision. It's a 30-year dedicated referendum to a transit transformation of Nashville. So this Friday, he will unveil the final plan. This, if it's approved by the council and gets on to the ballot, this will be what you're voting on. And last week, he gave us a few new surprising hints that included that there will be dozens of new transit centers. The curious thing is that he mentioned that Metro will be looking into acquiring land around those transit centers to build affordable housing and parks, because much of the federal grant money that he hopes to tap into requires that. It requires, those funds are earmarked already to invest in public transit where there's accessible, affordable housing, densely populated areas with that affordable housing. So that was interesting. So when I heard this, it was curious given what he said as far as his pitch all along, which is if they build it, they will come or they will ride. And of course that everybody already wants this. So what are we doing really? Are we building a city around transit, or are we introducing transit to help the city? It's kind of a chicken or the egg scenario with this new updated information. And of course, like I said, it does tap into, it's the same type of scenario of his favorite phrase, if we build it, they will ride. They will be live streaming the announcement on Friday, and you can go in person. You just have to RSVP by Wednesday, I believe. It will be held at the Southeast Community Center. So just so you know, that's going to be happening this Friday, and then we'll see if we're going to be voting on that in November. Next up, we're switching over to Metro Council. So Metro Council will be meeting this week. It's I haven't made it all the way through the entire calendar yet, but I do want to bring our attentions back to some of the Nest bills that were about the new zoning reforms that were going to be passed writ large that kind of got a lot of the media attention. You could go back and look into some of that if you are curious on thepamphleteer.co. But one of the bills that I expected to be on the agenda that wasn't on the agenda is a bill by Quinn Evans Siegel, who has kind of spearheaded this effort. And the bill is one that's potentially concerning because of the language. It redefines housing arrangements for people with disabilities, which is not a problem. At this point, the current code has it so that 8 unrelated disabled individuals and 2 additional guardians can live in a housing unit together. But the new bill would update the definition of physical or mental impairment. Though the bill language says it would not allow people who have been convicted of serious crimes related to their disability in these arrangements, the problem is that we're seeing an uptick with the mentally incapacitated criminals who are not being prosecuted. So they're not being prosecuted as a catch-22 because of their mental incapacity. So they're actually not convicted criminals. This isn't necessarily I'm not really out here trying to bash this bill. I would just like some clarity about, as we go forward, if these mentally incapacitated criminals are not being prosecuted, are they going to be allowed? Are these dangerous people going to be allowed in these arrangements, since they are redefining the terms of a mentally or physically impaired person? So that's something I'm keeping my eye on. Also, this past week on Friday, we heard from the mayor that the LPR program is delayed. If you can't recall, we did a pilot program. This was at the behest of MNPD, who wanted the technology to help them do surveillance and to catch stolen cars and all of this other stuff that, fight crime. Also, it was really supported by many council members who are experiencing an uptick in Grand Theft Auto, in the drag racing that we see. So it kind of had a mixed bag of people who were adamantly against it and people who were 100% in support of these LPRs. If you don't know what an LPR is, I should mention what that is. They're license plate readers, and they're the things that you sometimes see at a stoplight that scans your license plate. It basically checks against a system to see, if there's a flagged tag of like a stolen car or something like that. And so it is a type of surveillance, and they were put in places of high traffic areas and high crime areas in Nashville during a pilot program to see if it would help. And you may recall that there were hundreds of arrests. They recovered a lot of stolen cars and other apprehended criminals and stuff like that because of this technology. They did pass to implement this as a permanent program in Nashville, but now we're seeing a slow walk back from Freddie O'Connell. So on Friday, he announced that he will be holding a couple community meetings to hear people air out their grievances or their concerns about the LPR program. You may recall that the biggest pushback was actually about usage of this for looking into immigration status and also allowing ICE access to this information. So I'm sure that that's the complaint that we're going to hear a lot during these committee meetings. I don't really know what is going to be done about it, if anything's actually going to be changed, but they are holding these community meetings. They kind of put this LPR program on hold. And I know that lots of people are itching to reestablish it just because of the crime that they see in their community. As of right now, we're just waiting on this feedback and seeing exactly what the council and the mayor do about this. So, wow, I'm breezing right through this stuff, you guys. My last little segment is actually about status quo and the devil, as I like to call it, because in this era that we're living in, it's almost like if you are discerning or even objective, that you're kind of on the losing side. And that might not be something. You may argue that if you are on that side, that you're always on the losing side, that there is no objectivity, which is kind of, depressing. But as we go forward with the news and trying to get through the fog, I wanted to talk about the devil, and the ways that sometimes personally it can become really daunting and get in our way. So in the fog of war, it's a reference to the uncertainty and situational awareness experienced by participants in military operations. But there is a cloud that is looming over America right now. The media is so desperate that they are clinging to sensationalized headlines just to get the clicks, and it sows discord, and it obviously sows distrust. And we have experts whose only expertise seems to be knowing what mark to stand on and knowing where their bread is buttered. So we have a lot of distrust in modern society. We have foreign governments that control your tax dollars. We have the federal government that controls the value of your pocket change. And we have social media that controls your child's mind. And there is an incremental march towards obedience. We saw this in 2020, and it's set to this soundtrack of fear and even guilt. They use your own guilt of wanting to do right, wanting to be a good person against you. And it's just designed to keep you asleep. And if you awaken and you're angry and you're enraged, then you're told that you're crazy and you're ostracized and you're mocked. And when that doesn't work, then they change key. They just start to go towards telling you part of the truth just to just giving you a morsel, just a taste, just enough to keep you satisfied, so that, oh, at least they're being candid, at least there's some candor, at least they're saying the quiet part out loud. And that is the devil, you know. I love how I paused on devil. That is the devil. That's the devil that you know. It's just enough to keep you from being effective and just enough to keep you feeling like you can't do anything. There's just such a mountain to climb. The devouring beast knows its goal. Every move that you make can be used as an opportunity to defame you. It can render you useless. And a search for the hero is the Achilles heel. And I feel like I've said this before, is that because we're looking at the mountain and it's so high, it's too high. And of course, you can't eat the elephant in one solid bite. You got to eat away at it one bite at a time. You start to feel paralyzed. And we do tend to look for the hero figure. Who's going to save us, right? But there is a choice. There's always a choice. And every day your feet hit the ground. I've had this conversation, especially with veterans who've come back and they feel useless in society. I've had this talk a lot because I know a lot of military veterans, because I dated a veteran for a long time who went over to Afghanistan and Iraq and came home feeling completely useless. But every day your feet hit the ground and you refuse to succumb to the hatred and the fear and the despair, you've won the day. And that's because there's still hope. And I know that there's a lot of darkness in the world right now. Now I feel like I'm preaching, but the offender is merely an annoying gnat, okay, that constantly is buzzing in your ear, encouraging you to turn into the dragon that you have sworn to slay. And instead, you should take up your shovel and you should just start doing the thankless work of building a good foundation. It's not fun. It's hardly noticeable sometimes. You feel like it's pretty much useless, but I'm telling you, it is not useless. This is my encouragement for the day. I feel like I'm preaching now. But the best offense is taking it one day at a time. The best offense is having faith, vision, but like finding some beauty in life and having hope for the future. The grift will eventually come, and I'm already seeing it happening with certain type of leaders popping up, and it's not just one side or the other, it's on both sides. The grift will eventually come knocking at the door, and it comes in the form of a visionary selling you a quick fix and encouraging you to bring the light to the world by burning it all down. And that's not the answer. Instead, you have to find the tools that are already in your belt. And it's a long road. There is no quick fix, but you have to set yourself to the arduous task of building something worth dying for, something that I feel like this, you asked this, I used to ask this question on my first dates, is like, what would you die for? It's a hard question to answer. Hardly anybody knows what they would die for. So I think that given what happened over the weekend, given the direction that everything's going, given the bombardment of rhetoric and being confused about the information coming in, I just wanted to leave off this week on something a little bit more positive and identifying the real enemy, which is the devil that you know, the devil that helps you feed your fear and your anger. Don't succumb to it. I'm trying not to on my side. So basically that's my little spiel for the day. I'm glad that you guys tuned in. I'm hoping to start a new segment in a couple weeks. I have a friend who regularly goes to Metro City Council meetings, and I thought it would be fun to get her on here every once in a while and talk crap about, no, I'm just kidding, just talk shop about Metro City Council in a really candid way with somebody who has been a citizen here following council for like a decade now, probably longer, way longer than me. She has a deep knowledge of things that she's seen already happen, go through the council, and how there's patterns of things that repeat themselves. She's going to be joining us coming in a few weeks. I'm so glad that you guys tuned in. And as always, stay informed.